Good day, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I'm Meteorologist Addison Green here at KHOU 11 News, based in the Houston metro area. For all those that are watching outside of the Houston area, across the country and beyond. We're talking about a tropical disturbance out there that the National Hurricane Center is keeping its eyes on, as well as we are tracking the first nor'easter of the season, as well as the potential of seeing some strong to severe thunderstorms across the Midwest and in towards the plains. First things first, hurricane frequency. As you go through the season from the beginning of June all the way towards the end of November, that's the Atlantic tropical hurricane season, with the peak coming through on September 10th. As you go forward throughout the month of September into October, all the way towards the current date right now, the 26th, we do deal with that potential of us dealing with less activity going on across the Atlantic basin. That's because we're losing less of the, we're not having much of the conditions going on for seeing the possible growth of development of systems. We don't have a lot of tropical waves coming on off the African continent. We also have a lot of Saharan dust being in localized pockets. It's more widespread. We're also seeing the potential of dealing with the sea surface temperatures not really being as warm as they were back in the peak of the season. And also we have a lot of wind shear up aloft. So a lot of ingredients are not in favor for tropical development across the Atlantic basin from the west coast of Africa all the way out towards the Gulf of Mexico. Now, as we go forward throughout the rest of the season, we have one more name on this current list before we turn to a supplemental list of alphabetical names. And the last name on this list is Wanda, and it's been quite a while since we had Tropical Storm Victor come around. And we've been enjoying a nice, quiet pace in the tropics, thankfully not having any systems impacting any land masses and not impacting anybody's lives. But that one system we are, of course, keeping our eyes on. And as we go through the rest of October, this is where you can typically find some tropical development to occur, with the orange highlighted area the most likely place to see those storms develop. And it's typically off a tail end of a cold front, or a little system comes off the United States, kind of gets cut off from the main flow and just kind of hangs out, say right here off the coastal areas of the southeast. Well, it's tapping into the Gulf Stream, that current of sea surface temperature waters that are running slightly higher in temperature than the surrounding areas. And if it has the chance to grow and develop really nicely, you may get something to pop on up. But for the most part, look at those prevailing tracks right there. Those systems get kicked out to the east because that jet stream, that river of air aloft that moves the systems on the northern hemisphere from west to east, starts to bend and buckle and dig down across towards the southeast and helps to push any tropical activity further out to the east, like we are seeing with this system right now. And this one, as we are tracking the tropics, has the 50% chance of development in the next 2 to 5 days. And X marks the spot where it's currently located, and this orange highlighted area is where that chance of growth and development further can be found. But these waters right here, they're typically running a little cooler than down towards the south and west, and also there's more wind shear up in this region. So even if we do get something to form, whether it's a depression or a storm, it won't be long-lived, and thankfully won't be impacting too many locations as it's pulling away from the east coast of North America. Down across the East Pacific, we had a couple days ago Hurricane Rick. It made landfall in southwestern portions of Mexico, and that tropical moisture, that remnant moisture, has been drifting northward over time. Well, it will help, combined with some aided moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, bring around some potential tropical downpours as we move on forward in from later on today and in towards Wednesday morning across the southeastern portion of the United States, southeastern sections of the United States, and towards the southern plains because of a cold front approaching. Now this cold front, it's out towards the west, up across the Four Corners area of the United States, where we can see a dig in the jet stream going on right here, and then it starts to move northward towards Minnesota. There's a ridge right here of high pressure sitting up and over across the southern plains towards the central plains. So any storm activity has to go up and over it. But as we watch this trough dig down across the Four Corners, it's allowing colder air to descend down from northern portions of North America like Canada. And as a result, it's changing that precipitation from rain to a wintry mix to snow. But as we watch moving forward in time to later on today, we can see right there that these jet stream winds, these white streamlines coming on in, are coming at a very vigorous pace as they're rounding the corner of the bottom of that trough. But notice as they're moving northward, northeasterly direction, I should say, over portions of Oklahoma and Kansas, they're starting to spread themselves out like my fingers right here. And what you're doing is allowing a vacuum to form. And when you have a vacuum, you have to have something that wants to fill it. And that's storm development at the surface, where you get convection possibly fueling these large thunderstorms. And you have an updraft that goes right up across in those open sections where that vacuum is formed, and potentially allows some strong to severe thunderstorms to develop or to continue to maintain their strength. And you can see right there, just where those winds are starting to separate, look at that. We have those colors going from yellow to, I should say light green to yellow, where we see that potential of seeing maybe a cluster of thunderstorms right there. That will be on the strong to severe side, and that could potentially indicate the possibility of some strong winds at the surface, maybe some large hailstones, as well as the chance for seeing maybe a few tornadoes go through that region. As you move forward towards Wednesday morning, now we have the cold front pushing down across the southern plains. And notice that the time frame right here of 9 a.m. is, of course, earlier on in the day, but that's to our advantage because we will not have that significant daytime heating able to help to fuel these thunderstorms. So for the most part, the convection will be on the low end, but we still have to worry about the cold front itself because that will be the key ingredient, the big lifting mechanism to get these storms to rise up and then move from west to east over time. Notice the jet stream winds, I should say, they're not doing that diffusion pattern right there of my hands. They're not kind of like separating them off. So that's some good news. We don't have the potential of seeing some big time, strong to severe thunderstorms come through. Instead, these storms will be racing on in from west to east as we have that general direction of the wind flow coming on in up aloft, helping to push them out of the picture. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, now we have that cold front making its way out of Texas in towards Louisiana. We have the jet stream starting to buckle and tilt towards the east, tilting in a negative direction, and that also aids in the potential of stronger to severe thunderstorms. And we can see right there those winds starting to separate up aloft. Once again, we go from the green to yellow to even orange highlighted area where there may be a cluster of thunderstorms that have now popped on up with those strong updrafts coming through, and those will also potentially bring around some strong to severe weather across sections of Louisiana and eventually towards Mississippi as you go from Wednesday night into Thursday morning. With that jet stream now tilting to the south and east and the cold front itself moving towards the southeast, we now have a rush of cooler, dry air up aloft descending down in towards southeastern sections of Texas. What that will eventually do at the surface as those winds continue to blow on through is help to potentially give us some strong sustained winds and gusts that will be running maybe about 50, 60 miles per hour. So we may have to see some wind advisories or maybe some even high wind alerts being issued across sections of southeast Texas and in towards Louisiana. But eventually the winds will start to diminish and back down, allowing us for having much more tranquil conditions across sections of the southern plains. And that'll be the case in the wake of the system as it continues to move from west to east. But for the day today, I was mentioning the chance for seeing strong to severe weather and mentioned where we had those jet stream winds starting to separate. Yeah, right here in this section, where we had that orange highlighted color. That's a 3 out of 5 on our scale. That's an enhanced risk for severe weather. As you move forward in towards Wednesday, that potential is a 2 out of 5, so it's a slight risk for severe weather based on the Storm Prediction Center's scale. And that encompasses southeast Texas across much of Louisiana through sections of Mississippi and ending in towards Alabama and the western tip of Florida, where we're having those storms move on in towards the tail end of the day on Wednesday. But the beginning of the day, they'll be moving on in through the middle portions of the Lone Star State. Now back out there across and towards the northeast, where we are keeping our eyes on this system that has a chance of development next 2 to 5 days. And that is coming on in from a developing nor'easter, the first nor'easter of the season. And with a nor'easter, you don't always have to typically get, when you picture a nor'easter, snow coming down. Instead, you can also get rain, but the key ingredient is in the name, the nor'easter. It has winds coming in out of a northeasterly direction, moving on down across some of the coastal areas of some of the more populated portions of the nation, in towards Boston, into towards Portland, Maine, going in down towards New York City, even going down towards Philadelphia, and really big, strong ones can even bring some northeast conditions, northeast winds, all the way down towards Washington, D.C. But you can see right here in the visible satellite imagery, it's starting to get its act together as we have an upper area of low pressure here, aiding and transitioning an area of low pressure at the surface to strengthen and develop and tilt in a negatively tilted direction. So that's not good. That indicates that potential strengthening storm system as it's moving on in towards the tail end of the Gulf Stream, which is right in this area right here. So what we're looking at right now is the water vapor and wind flow coming in across the picture. You have drier air coming on down across the Great Lakes, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, descending down across the Appalachian Mountains and pushing offshore. Then we have all this moisture pooling up across the western section of the Atlantic, being wrapped up around that general area of circulation and diving down in across upstate New York and across New York City. Remember how I mentioned before you get those clashes of the air masses, you're going to have a little chaotic episode? Well, that will also be the case right here as well. And we can start to see that transitions from the upper area of low pressure, transitioning its energy down towards the surface low. And as we zoom on in, we can start to see it's starting to form and getting a little tighter in circulation. There's a secondary low, part of that upper low pressure system, trying to form over Sandy Hook, New Jersey, in towards the 5 boroughs of New York City as well. But eventually we'll see this energy being transferred over towards this area of low pressure. But until that happens, you still have the potential of the whole region being impacted by the system. Gusty winds coming on down. Look at that. Right down from Boston, down the I-95 corridor going towards New York City in a northeasterly direction. Hence the name nor'easter. What it's also doing, you can see right there up across in towards the Long Island Sound, it's pushing that water down and across towards sections of the Bronx, for instance, across the coastal areas of Connecticut and Long Island. And it's definitely impacting portions of eastern Massachusetts. That's Cape Cod right there, that little elbow that sticks out, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and that's Block Island, part of Rhode Island. All going to be heavily impacted by some really strong winds and a lot of wave activity. Speaking of watches and warnings, we do have several of them out there. We have a flood watch in the dark green highlighted area that does include Boston, Providence, Rhode Island. Flash flood watch is in this outlined area, which does include sections of upstate New York through the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area of Pennsylvania, across central and northern New Jersey, as well as across Long Island. There's a potential of seeing several inches of rain come down, and also the potential of the winds really strong and blowing some of that rain around across the area. We have wind advisories in the brown highlight of the region. Goes from coastal areas of Maine down towards the eastern sections of Long Island, that's Suffolk County, Long Island, and a high wind warning over there and across in towards the blue highlighted areas. Includes the southeastern section of Long Island. It's up near the Hamptons, for instance. You've probably heard that name before. As well as up towards Montauk Point, where that famous lighthouse is located. Includes the city of Boston, as well as much of the Cape Cod area as well, where those winds will be on the higher end. 60, 70 mile per hour gusts are certainly not out of the question. The waves, those are going to also get stronger over time. You can see them really cranking up as the system strengthens and develops over the next 24 hours. And the system moves eastward, and we get the waters to become much more calmer. But it will be a very choppy time going through the midsection of the work week ahead. Rainfall totals generally in this purple highlighted area, 1 to 4 inches of rain, especially up across, this is the Catskill areas of upstate New York. So on the eastern portion of the Catskills, you can get maybe a little bit of some orographic lift and enhanced moisture to come down, because those clouds are getting pushed up towards the mountains and then being forced up, so they quickly will wring out their precipitation. So also up across sections of the Finger Lakes in upstate New York, northeastern sections of Pennsylvania, the 5 boroughs of Manhattan, Boston, Massachusetts, Portland, Bangor, as well as in towards the Bar Harbor areas of Maine. So a lot of areas are going to be impacted because of this system developing. And you can see right there, as you look at the jet stream winds going back in towards the forecast for it, and they'll be eventually tilting once again as you move forward in towards Halloween coming up this Sunday. So there's going to be another round of potentially dealing with some active weather across that portion of the nation. So all the Halloween decorations that aren't tied down may be blown around across town, and all the fall foliage leaves that are around, well, they're going to be knocked off completely, and hopefully they don't get stuck on those storm drains, because then you may have the potential of seeing some urban flooding, because all that water that's trying to rush down in towards the drainage systems can't, because of all the leaves that have been blown down from the trees and are now stuck on those grates. If you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, feel free to reach out on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I go back and look at the comments section on YouTube, and I address any questions right there, as well as also trying to maybe take some of your thoughts and concerns and put them in towards the next video that'll come on out within a few days from now. But hopefully you have a great rest of your Tuesday.